Hey there, my name's Chris Winter, and in this video I'm going to do an in-depth review of the brand new Canon SL2 or 200D. So hopefully I can help you find out if this is going to be a good camera for you. And guys, if you want to win a Canon SL2 or Nikon D3400, I'm currently giving one away. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to this channel and my brand new travel channel, which I'll link in the description box below. By the way, definitely make sure to check out my brand new list, the top 10 best beginner DSLRs. I go through some of the cameras that would be best for you. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description box below this video and you can take a look. But anyway, let's take a look at this brand new little DSLR from Canon. So I want to start off this review by first taking a look at the build quality and features of this Canon SL2. And the very first thing that you notice when you pick it up is that it is a very small DSLR. In fact, it's one of the world's smallest DSLRs, which is something you really feel when you pick it up. The SL1, which came before the SL2, really introduced the idea of tiny DSLRs, and I'm glad that they've kept the size in the SL2. Now, with micro four thirds cameras coming into the mainstream these days, we're seeing smaller and smaller cameras. But if you're still looking for that traditional shape of a DSLR, the Canon SL2 is about as small as you're going to be able to get, and it's a great camera for taking around, especially if you want a travel camera. Now, even though the Canon SL2 is a very small DSLR, Canon have been pretty aggressive in trying to include a lot of new features on this Canon SL2, especially compared to the old Canon SL1. And one of the big features is on the back here. And that's with this brand new articulating screen. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard rumors that the Canon SL2 was gonna have an articulating screen, I got pretty excited, and to see it come through makes me pretty happy. It's also a fully articulating screen, which is fantastic because it means that you can actually flip the screen out, and if you want to take a shot from up high, you can flip it down, or if you want to get a shot from down low, you can flip it up. And you can also flip it all the way around, so if you're filming yourself like I'm doing right now, that's awesome too, but we'll talk more about that later. Either way though, the inclusion of this is one of the best new features on the Canon SL2. Now, staying on the back of the Canon SL2, another great feature about this camera is that its articulating screen is actually a touchscreen, and it's a pretty good one at that. Now, sometimes you might think that a touchscreen is a little bit of a gimmick, but ever since I first used one a few years back on the Canon 70D, I've actually found them to be incredibly useful. Sure, I still use all the buttons on the top and at the back, but having that touchscreen does make it a lot easier. For example, you can quickly jump through menus without having to scroll all the way to the end. But the feature for me that's really the best is with focusing. Now, we'll talk about it a bit more in depth later on in this review, but the Canon SL2 has a brilliant new autofocus system called Dual Pixel. And when you pair it up with a touchscreen on the back, it's absolutely amazing. You can simply press wherever you want on the screen, and wherever you touch comes into focus cinematically and smoothly. It really is brilliant. Now, one of the reasons why I still love DSLRs compared to point and shoot cameras is their versatility, especially with being able to change different lenses. Now, for example, the Canon SL2 is an APS-C camera, so it can fit a number of different lenses. It normally comes with an 18 to 55mm kit lens. This is great because it can allow you to get pretty wide and zoomed in a bit. You could also get a really wide angle lens. This is a 10 to 18mm STM. And this one here goes 18 to 135, so you really can zoom in, but also have a very long focal length. But if you really want to get a longer focal length, the Canon SL2 can even fit a lens like this. This is a 500mm lens. This is a manual focus lens, but you can see that even with a very small body like the Canon SL2, if you do want to upgrade to a bigger lens one day, you can actually do it with a big lens like this on the Canon SL2. It's a bit of fun. Now, another nice inclusion on the Canon SL2 is on the side here, and that's the inclusion of a microphone jack. This means that rather than relying on the inbuilt mics on the Canon SL2, you can plug in a shotgun mic or a wireless mic and record fantastic audio. Unfortunately though, we are still missing a headphone jack, which would have been nice to see, but to be totally honest, I probably didn't expect it in a camera that was this cheap. Now, the inbuilt mic, it's not that great, but it's not that bad. But I would always recommend getting an external mic that you can plug in with that 3.5mm jack, something like a Rode VideoMic Pro. Now, I just quickly want to talk about the menus on the Canon SL2. Overall, if you've ever used a Canon camera before, you'll feel right at home. Now, even if this is your very first DSLR, you won't really have any problems, especially with a new touchscreen on the back. It really is pretty simple. Another nice addition to the Canon SL2 is its inclusion of Wi-Fi and NFC. This essentially allows you to quickly pair it up to your smartphone to transfer photos wirelessly without having to connect it to a computer. Overall, I found it actually worked really quite well, especially when you use the Canon Camera Connect app. It's actually quite a lot better than a lot of other cameras. Let's now talk about the burst rate on the Canon SL2. Now, the SL2 and of course the 200D can shoot at a pretty impressive 5 frames per second, which sounds a little bit like this. Now, 5 frames per second is a pretty substantial jump from the 3 frames per second, which has been the standard for beginner cameras from Canon for a long time. This means that the Canon SL2 will be great for shooting sports, pictures of fast-moving kids, and even some wildlife shots. Now, talking about autofocus on the Canon SL2, like I said before, the autofocus is greatly improved, even in stills mode. The SL2 has 9 autofocus points, with 1 being cross-type, which isn't the most impressive number out there, but honestly, in day-to-day use, it worked well. I found myself having no problems really catching my subjects in focus, even in some lower light situations. So overall, the SL2 was a very solid performer, especially for a sub $600 camera. Now, if I was to point out a weakness with the Canon SL2, it would probably be its battery life. So the SL2 uses the LPE17 batteries, which is found in some other Rebel series cameras, and it isn't the best in terms of holding battery. For stills, the SL2 was actually fine, but it did chew through battery pretty quickly when shooting video, so I'd always advise in picking up an extra battery from places like Amazon or eBay. Okay, so now I want to touch on the video side of the Canon SL2, and this is where things really get exciting. To me, the Canon SL2 is essentially a mini Canon 80D or 77D. It's brilliant. The Canon SL2 has some really killer video features, which I didn't actually ever expect to see in a beginner DSLR. Firstly, it's got that fully articulating screen, which I was talking about before. For video, it really does make shooting a lot easier. Rather than trying to see the rear LCD in awkward positions, you can move the camera around with ease simply by moving the LCD. We've also got that touchscreen on the articulating screen. Like I said before, it really does make life so much easier because all you need to do is simply tap on the screen, and wherever you touch this little box right here, it's going to smoothly and cinematically come into focus. You can do some really cool focus pulls with it, even if you're an absolute beginner. And really, that all comes down to the new dual pixel autofocus system in the SL2. It's trickled down from the Canon 70D and 80D, and to me, it's the best autofocus system for video in any camera on the market. The SL2 also has face tracking mode, which works really well. In fact, I'm actually using it right now, and I've been using it for the whole video. And you can see that as I move in and out, my face stays in focus without anyone behind the camera. So if you're an up-and-coming YouTuber, or you want to just film yourself without having someone there to film you, this can be a really good thing with that new dual pixel autofocus. It works really, really well. Another new feature in the Canon SL2 is that you can now shoot in 1080p 60 frames per second. With this, you can slow your footage down to 50% and get some really buttery smooth slow motion. It really does look great, and you're still filming in 1080p, so it's pretty sharp. They've also thrown in a nice time-lapse mode as well, which can also be great, especially if you're a vlogger. Add in the fact that you can also record good quality audio with a built-in mic jack, and you've got yourself a bit of a winning video camera. In fact, I'm going to go out there right now and say that the Canon SL2 and the 200D will be the most popular DSLR for YouTubers next year. It's really that good, and I highly recommend it for video. So as you can probably tell, I'm actually in love with this little camera from Canon. I think that this is the best beginner camera that you can buy on the market today, bar none. In fact, I think it's actually probably one of the best cameras you can get under $1,000, because what it allows you to do is have a little bit of extra money to allow you to buy some better lenses. If you're hesitating about buying the Canon SL2, take it from me, I would buy this camera. It really is a beauty, and you will absolutely love it. So that was my review of the Canon SL2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.